All right, let's just jump right in. Imagine this. You've got to grab a high-value target, but the entire world is watching your every single move. I mean, how do you even begin to pull that off? It's one of the toughest puzzles in modern special ops, and, according to the source material we're looking at, it's a puzzle that was solved with an incredible bit of deception.
And that really brings us to the core question here. How do you make a president, a sitting president, just vanish from a city that's basically a fortress? We're not talking about some small town. We're talking about Caracas, the capital of Venezuela, and it is locked down tight. So yeah, how on earth did it happen?
Well, the whole thing kicks off at 2 in the morning local time in Venezuela. The city's asleep, but high above, all the pieces are already clicking into place. And then, bam! The entire city is plunged into total darkness. The reports coming from the ground describe massive explosions, and all communications just die. Now, you might think this is about creating chaos, but that's not the goal. The chaos, that was the cover. And just like that, it's over. 3 hours later, as the sun is just starting to think about coming up, the mission is complete. The president of Venezuela is gone, vanished, and everyone is left asking the exact same thing. How?
Okay, so the answer, believe it or not, doesn't actually start with the raid itself. It starts months earlier. See, this whole thing wasn't an invasion. Not at all. It was a surgical extraction, and the absolute key was getting the whole world to look the other way.
For months leading up to this, the U.S. had been setting up a naval quarantine around Venezuela. We're talking carrier strike groups, amphibious ready groups, a massive force parked right off the coast. And get this, a staggering 150 aircraft were in the sky. The source material calls it a deafening sonic shield, and that noise, that presence, was the perfect cover for the real mission happening in the quiet below.
You know, it was a classic case of misdirection, a grand deception. What the world saw, what was on the news, was this huge, conventional military show of force. Carriers, destroyers, fighter jets, all looking like they were focused on some narco-terrorist problem. But that was just the show. In the shadows, a completely different, much quieter, and way more precise war was being fought on the ground.
So with the world completely distracted, how did the actual takedown go down? Well, the source lays out this incredibly precise 4-step plan. This was all about speed, stealth, and hitting the target with overwhelming force before anyone knew what was happening. They called it Operation Southern Spear, and it unfolded in 4 distinct phases. First, you got stealth fighters that just punch a clean hole right through the air defenses. Phase 2, while those fighters are creating diversions by hitting military bases, helicopters come screaming in, super low to the ground. That leads to Phase 3, the Tier 1 operators hit the compound. And finally, Phase 4, they grab the target and are airlifted out of there before the enemy even has a chance to react. It's just in and out. And when we say Tier 1 operators, who are we talking about? Well, the unit that reportedly got the call for this was Delta Force. These guys are one of the most elite, most secretive Special Forces units on the planet. This kind of high-stakes, direct action mission, it's literally what they do. But you know, being the best isn't enough. You need an edge. And the crucial edge here was intelligence. The source says the CIA had an asset, a mole, planted right inside the president's inner circle. Think about that. And at the same time, back in the States, Delta Force had built a perfect, full-scale replica of his safe house. They ran that raid over and over and over until they could do it in their sleep. Now, let's talk about the tech, because it's a massive piece of this puzzle. The source is clear that stealth F-35s were leading the charge. But why? Why was this specific jet so absolutely critical? I mean, why couldn't a more common F-16 get the job done?
Well, the answer is all about what they were flying into. Venezuela doesn't have an old, outdated air defense system. It's a modern, formidable network. We're talking advanced Russian S-300 missile systems, which are no joke. We're talking integrated Chinese radar systems. They've even got Iranian Shahed drones flying recon. For any non-stealth aircraft, that is an incredibly dangerous place to be. And this is where you really see the difference. An older F-16, for all its strengths, has no stealth. It would light up those S-300 radars like a Christmas tree. The mission would be incredibly risky, maybe even impossible. But the F-35? This is the exact scenario it was built for. Its stealth means it can slip in completely undetected, and its wild sensor suite means it can take out those defenses before they even know it's there. It's a total game changer. And there's another huge advantage here. We're talking about the F-35B model. This version can take off vertically from amphibious assault ships, like the ones that were just hanging out off the coast.
And that gives them an unbelievable response time. They can launch from the sea and be over targets inside Venezuela in like 10 to 15 minutes. That's an insanely fast and flexible way to strike. So what's the big picture here? What's the real impact of an operation like this? According to the source material, this was about way more than just grabbing one person. It was about sending a message, a very, very loud message, and fundamentally reshaping the strategic map.
There's actually a quote from the source narrative that I think just nails the perceived significance. It says, "This operation has changed the geopolitical map of South America overnight." I mean, think about it. The ability to just surgically remove a head of state from their own fortified capital, that shows a level of capability that makes every other country in the region, and probably the world, stop and completely rethink their own security.
So when you boil it all down, what can we really take away from this story? Well, there are 3 huge points. First, technology is king. Stealth and advanced sensors aren't just cool extras anymore, they're absolutely essential against modern defenses. Second, the power of deception. The real main event was the one that nobody was even looking at. And finally, the value of precision. This wasn't a sledgehammer, it was a scalpel.
And all of this really leaves us with one big lingering question. In an age of stealth technology and surgical strikes, where a nation's borders and even its capital can be breached without anyone seeing it coming, what does national security even mean anymore? What does sovereignty mean in the 21st century? It's a question that really changes how we have to think about modern conflict.